All right, so today we're diving deep into the world of licensing managers.
Ooh, licensing
Yeah,
managers.
we've got all this research from RoleCatcher.
Okay.
And it turns out it's this super interesting mix of law and business and, strategy.
Yeah, it really is.
Like, when you think about it,
It's true.
every company
Right.
with a product they want to protect,
Mm-hmm.
a logo, or even like that catchy jingle everybody knows.
Yeah. Yeah.
They need someone who makes sure nobody's ripping them off.
Exactly. Exactly.
And that's where our licensing manager steps in.
That's where they come in.
Protecting all that intellectual property.
It's not just protection, though.
Oh,
It's also about strategy.
okay.
It's about leverage, right?
Yeah.
A good licensing manager, they don't just lock things away.
Right.
They find ways to use trademarks, patents, all of that to actually generate revenue.
Oh, so we're talking deals.
Deals, partnerships, making sure everybody benefits.
And that's got to be where the whole high earning potential thing comes in, right?
Absolutely.
This isn't like your typical 9 to 5.
No, not at all.
We're talking high stakes, big money deals.
Big responsibilities, big rewards,
Makes sense to me.
but gotta be realistic too.
Oh, right. There's always a catch.
Guide mentions high pressure as a potential downside.
High pressure, high reward, right?
Exactly.
So what are we talking about? What makes it so intense?
Well, think about it. You're handling legally binding agreements.
Oh, so you need to know your stuff.
Absolutely. And not just in one area.
No.
You might be dealing with different industries,
Really?
different countries even.
Oh, wow.
It's a lot to keep track of.
So not for someone who panics easily.
You got to be able to think on your feet, make decisions.
Thrive under pressure.
Exactly.
Okay, so let's say someone's listening and they're like, this is me. This is my dream job.
Okay, I like their enthusiasm.
How do they actually get started? What's the typical path look like?
All right, so the guide, it mentions a bachelor's degree as like the bare minimum.
Okay, makes sense.
But here's what's interesting. They really emphasize experience.
Experience. More than the degree itself.
Seems that way.
Interesting.
We're talking internships, specifically in intellectual property or licensing.
So it's not enough to just ace your law exams.
Nope.
You got to get your hands dirty.
You got it.
So those internships, they're like your proving ground.
Exactly.
Okay, so you've landed the internship, impressed everyone, and now you're in the field.
All right, so you're in. Now what?
Yeah, what then? What's the next step to really stand out?
This is where it gets interesting.
Oh,
The learning never really stops in this field.
makes sense. Things change so fast.
Exactly.
Okay, so what do they recommend? How do you stay ahead of the game?
Guide mentions workshops, certifications, even advanced degrees.
Okay, hold on. Got to pump the brakes for a sec.
Sure.
For those of us who don't speak fluent licensing manager,
Right, of course.
can you break down those certifications? I caught CLP and CPVA, but no clue what they mean.
Absolutely.
And more importantly, why would someone put themselves through that?
Okay, so CLP, that's Certified Licensing Professional,
Catchy?
globally recognized, which is huge in this field.
Right, licensing deals can span the globe.
Exactly. So having that CLP on your resume.
Shows you can handle the international stuff.
Exactly. Now, CPVA, that's a whole other animal.
Oh,
Certified Patent Valuation Analyst.
sounds intense.
It is, but in a good way.
Okay.
If you're working with companies sitting on a mountain of patents, think tech, pharmaceuticals.
High stakes.
High stakes, big money.
Right.
You need someone who can look at a patent and say, this is worth X amount and back it up.
So it's like knowing the law is one thing,
Mhm.
but this is about understanding the actual value
The financial value, the market value, all of it.
and being able to use that in negotiations.
You got it. That's the CPVA edge.
Wow. Okay, so we've got these certifications.
Right. Real world skills.
But the guide also mentioned something about technology changing things.
It's huge, actually.
Like what specifically?
Well, for starters, they talk about these digital platforms for licensing.
Okay, making things more efficient, I'm guessing.
Exactly. Streamlining the whole process.
But then they mentioned AI.
Yes.
AI in
Yep.
contract management.
The future is here.
Wait, are we talking robot lawyers now?
Well, not quite robots.
Because that's a whole other deep dive.
It really is.
But seriously, AI negotiating deals.
It's more about assisting right now.
Okay, so like what?
Imagine software that can scan a contract, find potential loopholes.
Oh, that would have been handy back at law school.
Right. Or even inconsistencies, especially with international law.
Oh, that makes sense. Things get complicated across borders.
Exactly. These AI tools can be invaluable for that.
Okay, so it's not just about knowing the law inside and out anymore.
Nope.
It's about understanding how technology fits into all of this.
Yeah, absolutely.
Man, this role is way more complex than I think people realize.
It's dynamic, always changing.
It's not just about dusty old contracts anymore.
Not at all. You're at the forefront of how business gets done.
And staying ahead of the curve is key.
Exactly. Which brings us to the career path itself.
Oh, right. We were talking about how to actually climb the ladder.
Yeah, because it's not like you just become a licensing manager overnight.
It's a journey.
It is a journey with stages.
Okay, so where does it all begin?
Well, the guide uses the example of a licensing assistant.
So, entry level?
Yeah, you're learning the ropes, supporting more senior team members.
Like an apprenticeship, but for contracts.
Exactly. You're doing research, drafting documents.
Getting a feel for the day-to-day.
It's exactly the pace, the types of deals, the industry jargon.
So what comes after you've paid your dues as an assistant?
All right, next rung on the ladder, licensing coordinator.
Okay, so you're moving up.
You're given more responsibility,
Like what?
managing and coordinating certain agreements.
Oh, so you're not just following instructions anymore.
Right, you're starting to make decisions.
That's a big step.
It is, and there's more. The guide also mentions conducting market analysis.
Market analysis for licensing agreement.
Exactly. Remember, it's all about leverage.
Right? Finding new opportunities to use intellectual property.
Precisely. So a good licensing coordinator.
They need to know their stuff when it comes to business.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so we've gone from assistant to coordinator.
Climbing that ladder.
What's next?
All right, so from coordinator, you might move into a licensing specialist role.
Okay, getting closer to the top.
Getting there, and this is where you really start to hone those skills.
Like what kind of skills are we talking about?
You're managing a whole portfolio of agreements now.
Wow, multiple deals at once.
Yep, and maybe even leading negotiations.
Negotiations, so you're like the deal maker now.
In a way, yeah, at least for the less complex deals.
Still, that's huge.
It is. It's where you make a name for yourself.
Okay, so assistant coordinator, specialist.
The path is becoming clear.
Is it finally time for the big leagues? The licensing manager.
You got it. That's where we're headed.
Okay, but before we get into the nitty-gritty of what a licensing manager actually does,
Right, because there's a lot to unpack there.
what does it actually take to reach that level?
Yeah.
What separates the specialists from the managers?
Well, it seems like once you hit that manager level, it becomes less about you and the individual deals.
Oh, so it's a leadership thing.
Exactly.
Okay, so what does that look like, being a licensing manager?
The guide makes it clear you go from doing to overseeing.
Okay, I like that.
You're not just handling agreements yourself.
Right.
You're running the whole show,
The whole licensing process.
a whole shebang.
So you need to know how to manage a team,
Absolutely.
set strategies,
Yeah.
be the point person for like everything licensing
You
related.
become the go-to expert.
So it's not just about being a contract whiz anymore.
Nope.
You need some serious leadership skills.
Big time.
You're basically the CEO of intellectual property for your company.
I like that analogy. It's a big responsibility.
And the guide, they really emphasize communication, building relationships,
Can't underestimate that.
because you're talking to everyone.
Right. It's not just about the contracts themselves.
Okay, so who are you dealing with?
Internally, you've got legal, marketing, product development.
Oh, so many different departments.
Exactly. Got to keep everyone on the same page.
And then externally, you're working with partners, licensees, maybe even government agencies.
Oh, wow. So it's a lot of juggling.
It's a delicate dance, for sure.
And remember how we were talking about those high pressure situations?
Yeah.
I'm guessing those don't get any easier as you move up the ladder.
You're not wrong.
So what kind of personality thrives in that kind of environment?
Guide says, first and foremost, you got to stay calm under pressure.
That's easier said than done.
It is, but it's crucial.
What else?
You have to be decisive.
No time for waffling.
Exactly. You got to make tough calls, sometimes with limited information.
And of course, we can't forget strategy.
Especially when those negotiations get heated, right? Because things can get pretty intense when millions of dollars are on the line.
Oh yeah, but here's the thing.
What's that?
The guide, they don't just focus on the hard skills.
Okay, what else is there?
They also talk about interpersonal skills.
So you're not just a robot negotiating contracts.
Right. You got to be able to build trust.
Especially with so many different personalities to navigate.
Exactly.
And when things go south, which they inevitably do,
happens to the best of us.
you need those conflict resolution skills.
Got to be a mediator, find common ground.
So it's like you're a lawyer, but you're also a diplomat.
In a way, yeah, you're bridging the gap between legal and business.
And let's not forget,
What's that?
this whole field is constantly changing.
Always evolving.
New laws, new technologies.
New everything. It's a lot to keep up with.
It really is.
So the guide, they really hammer home the importance of staying up to date.
Okay, so we talked about certifications earlier.
Right, those were a good start.
But what else?
Yeah.
How do you stay ahead of the curve in this field?
Well, they're big on professional development.
Makes sense. You got to keep learning.
Exactly. Conferences, workshops.
Networking opportunities, I bet.
Oh, for sure.
What about reading, like industry publications?
Can hurt. And if you're really serious, maybe even an advanced degree.
Oh, wow. Like what?
They mention intellectual property law.
Okay, so you could really go deep on the legal side.
Yep. Or business administration.
So you could go the MBA route.
Exactly. It really depends on your interests and career goals.
So you're constantly adapting your skill set
That's the name of the game.
to match whatever crazy new thing is happening in the world.
It's a wild ride, but that's what makes it exciting.
And let's be real, with all this talk about AI and digital platforms taking over,
Right, because that's where things seem to be headed.
is there still a place for humans in all of this?
It's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Because if algorithms can do everything.
Write the contracts, negotiate the deals. What are we left with?
Right, it's a little scary to think about.
I get it, the future of work is uncertain.
But the guide, they seem to think there's still hope for us fleshy folks.
Oh, they're definitely optimistic.
Okay, so what's their take? What can humans do that robots can't?
They say, and I tend to agree, that while technology can handle the routine stuff.
Like crunching numbers, analyzing data.
Exactly.
It's still humans who bring the judgment, the strategy, the relationship building.
Those uniquely human skills.
The things that make us, well, us.
And those things, they're still incredibly valuable in the world of licensing.
That's reassuring to hear.
Right. Even in this age of...
At the end of the day, business is about people.
It always has been, always will be.
And the best licensing managers, they understand that.
They're not just legal experts, they're people.
They can navigate those complex relationships.
Build trust. Find solutions that work for everyone.
And that's not something you can program into an algorithm.
Not yet, anyway.
Okay, so the guide does a great job of laying out this career path.
It's a roadmap to success.
You start as an assistant, you learn the ropes,
You pay your dues,
you work your way up to coordinator, then specialist.
gaining experience every step of the way.
And finally, you reach the top, licensing manager.
The ultimate goal.
But the journey, it's not always easy.
Definitely comes with its challenges.
Speaking of challenges, the guide also mentions some very specific hurdles that licensing managers face.
Right, because it's not all sunshine and roses.
So let's dive into that a bit.
Okay, let's get into the weeds.
What are some of the biggest obstacles in this line of work?
Well, aside from the obvious legal and contractual stuff, which we've talked about,
Right, because those can get pretty hairy.
they can and do. But one of the biggest challenges, according to the guide,
Yeah.
is simply keeping track of everything.
Like organizationally?
Exactly. You're juggling multiple licenses.
Right, different deadlines, different terms.
Different everything. It's a lot to manage, especially as you climb that ladder, more responsibility, more agreements to oversee.
Right, like those licensing managers we were talking about, overseeing a whole team.
Exactly. And the guide, they highlight just how important organization is in this role.
Makes sense. You don't want to be caught slipping up on a deadline.
Oh, absolutely not. Not when millions are at stake.
So you need a system, a way to keep track of all those moving parts.
The guide actually uses the phrase attention to detail.
Oh, so it's not just about the big picture.
Nope. You got to be able to zoom in on the fine print, too.
Interesting.
And then there's the whole issue of disputes.
Oh, right, because even with the best contracts,
Always a catch.
things can still go wrong.
Absolutely. People disagree, interpretations differ. It's just the nature of business.
And I'm guessing it's the licensing manager who gets called in to clean up the mess.
You got it. They become the mediator, the problem solver.
So not only do you need that lawyerly mind to understand the contract, you also need the people skills to smooth things over.
Exactly. Because you got to find a solution that works for everyone.
Maintain those relationships.
Keep everyone happy, or at least content.
And on top of all that,
Wait, there's more.
oh, there's always more.
Oh, no. What else could there be?
Remember how we talked about this field constantly changing?
Oh, right. The whole staying ahead of the curve thing.
Well, that's not just a suggestion.
It's a full-time job in itself, isn't it?
Pretty much, the guide makes it clear continuous learning is non-negotiable.
Okay, so it's not enough to just know the law.
Nope, got to stay on top of the latest trends.
New regulations, new technologies, new ways of doing business.
Because what's standard practice today could be obsolete tomorrow.
And the last thing you want is to be caught off guard.
Right, especially when your company's relying on you to protect their most valuable assets.
It's a high-stakes game for sure, but that's what makes it so exciting.
It really is. And I think about it,
What's on your mind?
this one role, it really does bring together so many different skills.
It's a unique blend.
You need that legal foundation, of course,
Absolutely.
but then you also need the business sense,
The strategy, the vision,
the leadership qualities to manage a team,
the communication skills to wrangle all those different personalities.
and even a little bit of diplomacy thrown in for good measure.
Diplomacy is essential, especially when those high-pressure situations arise.
Right, because it's not just about knowing the law.
Oh.
It's about knowing how to use it strategically,
To protect your company's interest,
to build relationships,
to get the deal done.
and hopefully to come out on top.
Well, that's the goal, isn't it?
It is, and the guide does a fantastic job of showing how challenging this career path can be.
It's not for the faint of heart.
But it also highlights the incredible rewards,
The high earning potential,
the opportunity to work with cutting-edge technologies.
the chance to shape the future of how business gets done,
And for the right person,
the one who's up for the challenge.
it can be an incredibly fulfilling career.
Absolutely.
So for anyone listening who's now thinking, maybe this is the path for me.
I see that spark, that curiosity.
Well, it's one key takeaway you'd want them to remember. Something that really gets to the heart of what it means to be a licensing manager.
We've covered a lot of ground today. The legal stuff, the business stuff, the tech, the people skills.
It's a lot to take in.
It really is, but at its core, I think this role is about finding that balance
Balance between what?
between protection and opportunity.
Okay, I like that.
On the one hand, you're the guardian of your company's intellectual property.
Making sure nobody's infringing, nobody's stealing.
But on the other hand, you're also the one finding ways to share that property with the world,
To create partnerships, to generate revenue.
to drive innovation.
So it's not just about locking things away,
No, it's about finding those win-win scenarios.
where everyone benefits.
Exactly, and that takes a special kind of person, someone who can see both sides,
Who can think creatively, strategically,
who's not afraid of a challenge.
and who's passionate about the power of intellectual property.
Because ultimately, that's what it's all about.
Well said. And on that note, I think we've reached the end of our deep dive into the world of licensing managers.
It's been quite a journey.
It really has. We've explored the ins and outs of this fascinating field, the skills, the challenges, the rewards.
And hopefully we've inspired some future licensing managers along the way.
That would be amazing because, as we've learned today, it's a role that's only becoming more important in our increasingly knowledge-based economy.
Absolutely. So to all those future licensing managers out there, we're rooting for you.
We are. Until next time.